I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Around the nation, DYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. Boy, we got a great one on this Wednesday afternoon. Hump Day. So half the week, just about over, but don't worry. The stories have just begun. Yes, we've got some excellent news. I'm going to talk a little bit about the primaries that were held on yesterday. Turns out, actually not a bad night. Pretty good. We'll talk about those victories. And then we'll go into, of course, Brad Parscale and Jared Kushner. So Donald Trump not too happy with those two because of the Tulsa disaster. Then we have Trump being very stable genius. So on COVID-19 in the middle of a racist tirade on the coronavirus. So we'll talk about that as well. Then we've got Lawn Care Karen. Who is that? Just, the latest white woman to go viral for threatening the cops. I'm sorry, threatening a black man with the cops. And then, of course, we've got another conservative crying about Aunt Jemima pancakes. So crying over her pancakes. So we'll do that. So we got a good show for you guys today. Also, things that are notable. Looks like Michael Flynn. Appears that a judge has overturned the sentence on Michael Flynn. So, yeah. We'll talk about that more probably tomorrow. If you guys are interested in that, after all, we'll talk about the lawlessness of the Trump administration. But yeah, that's what we got today. So I guess before we get into it, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Super chats are always welcome. Comments as well. I like to read your comments during the show because I like the interaction. We do the show together, and so keep doing it. All right. That said, let's dive into the first story. So last night was actually a very good night for progressives, especially when it comes to New York. So I'm going to detail some of the wins for progressives that we had on the primary, which of course had been delayed until June 23rd. It was actually supposed to be held earlier, but because of concerns of coronavirus, it was held off. So that actually, I think, gave some campaigns some much needed attention and boosts and all that stuff. So that's generally a pretty good thing. So now let's go into some of the victories. We'll start out with the most obvious win here, and that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Turns out AOC had a primary challenger. Did she do very well, that primary challenger? No. It was a blowout. complete landslide. AOC with the win with 72% of the vote. Now, of course, it didn't help that her challenger was challenging her from the right. So it's a very centrist, very moderate former CNBC anchor named Michelle Caruso Cabrera, or notice how they went for MCC. Oh, MCC versus AOC. We're going to take over with the moderation. Yeah. The go-centrism. No. How about not? How about screw centrism, AOC for the win? And that's her district saying, no, we like who we have. I love that people out there reporting, AOC is going to lose. She's totally going to lose. Her constituents are very, very mad about the deal with Amazon. They're not going to vote her back in. I mean, she was just a fluke anyway. Lightning in a bottle. They're never going to recreate it. She's never going to win re-election. Yes, there were people out there saying that. Tim Pool, obviously very, very wrong on those predictions. She did excellent. Turns out, progressives got to win. Who knew, right? So now, again, I love how MCC Caruso Cabrera, right, was also an ex-Republican. And so she was a very establishment pick, very centrist, very moderate, but with a twist. See, the establishment thought that, all we have to do is we have to pick a woman, we have to pick a young Latina, and then shower her with money and be like, look, it's the new AOC, but it's the centrist version. It's diet AOC. That'll work? Sure. No. Oddly enough, she actually did try to use AOC's playbook by saying that, oh no, AOC, ever since you elected her and she got famous, she wasn't actually hanging out in the community and representing the community. Oh, no, of course not. Well, that's ridiculous. There's plenty of video footage, right, of evidence of AOC actively in her community trying to help her community, especially during the coronavirus pandemic, where she was distributing care packages. She was seen quite a few times doing that. And so not only that, but of course, continuing to fight for her community when she was in the House. And so ridiculous attack, of course. And her opponent had a lot of money. That's what these establishment candidates always have. They always have a ton of money behind them, right? And they always have establishment picks behind them, establishment figures behind them, doing endorsements, all that stuff. And so AOC, though, destroyed her. Sent her back to Trump Tower. Now you may think, wait, what does Trump Tower have to do with this? Well, it turns out that's where Cabrera used to live. She used to live in Trump Tower, and she moved from there to the district to try to primary AOC. And of course, she got got the floor wiped with her. Great. So now that's AOC's race. So let's move on, right? We got another victory who was actually, this is a person who is actually considered the next AOC. And that's Jamal Bowman. So now this is Jamal Bowman versus longtime establishment pick Elliot Engel, right? So Elliot Engel is, again, a longtime establishment Democrat, very, very powerful, a lot like Joe Crowley. And so now there's a notable difference, right? Now, Joe Crowley didn't spend a lot of time in the district. He was very, very dismissive of AOC. He's like, oh, she'll never win, right? Whatever. Like, I don't even need to be here. And really, in some of the debates, he was never there. He didn't show up. He appointed someone else to go and debate with AOC in his place. He's like, I ain't got time for that. Not at all. Now, Elliot Engel, a little bit different, because he actually did take this somewhat seriously. In fact, he was caught on tape saying, look, I wouldn't even be here if I weren't in a primary. And so, yes, he did take this seriously. The establishment took it seriously. And of course, they were behind him 100%. In fact, They showered him with lots and lots of money, and then gave him endorsements. For example, people like Chuck Schumer endorsed him, Nancy Pelosi. Even Hillary Clinton came out and was like, oh, I will endorse you, Elliot Engel. That Hillary Clinton endorsement, that must be the kiss of death. I mean, so look, Elliot Engel, he got destroyed by 30 points, right? Bowman won his race 60 to 32%. And look, there are still, of course, absentee ballots being counted in a lot of the places that have had elections. But generally, Jamal Bowman, I mean, I don't know. I don't think Elliot Engel can make up a 30-point loss. So crushing victory. Again, back to AOC, right? Since there are a lot of parallels in this race, again, the establishment was very, very dismissive of AOC. Thought, oh no, your win is going to be a fluke. No other progressive is going to be able to win a similar race. We'll get it back, right? We'll win these districts. Elliot Engel is going to crush Bowman. AOC is not going to win again. Well, not a fluke. Not a fluke at all. So what helped, of course, is endorsements. AOC endorsed Jamal Bowman. So and the thing that's important about endorsements, right, is that what you're doing is that you're lending your name, you're lending your credibility to someone else in order to get them, of course, media attention. And AOC has star power, and she gave that to Jamal Bowman. And of course, so did Bernie Sanders. So did Elizabeth Warren. Both of them endorsed Jamal Bowman. And so, Elizabeth Warren, I mean, she's like hit and miss when it comes to some of her endorsements. Although she's been missing more than anything else, nonetheless, that was good. That did help Jamal Bowman. Both of those endorsements, actually all of them. But I think especially from AOC. That's the big one. So now, let's see, there's more, right? A couple of lesser known races, but nonetheless important. You've got Mondaire Jones, right? So now Mondaire Jones is a progressive activist, right? And he beat a crowded race in New York's 17th congressional district. And so what's important about him is, of course, again, he's progressive and has a shot at becoming the country's first gay black congressman. That's important. And so that's another race that went towards a progressive victory. Not only that, but you've got Richie Torres. Richie Torres from the 15th congressional district and ran in a wild card election. So never really know how it was going to turn out. But because like Mondaire Jones' race, it was a pretty crowded field. Well, Torres pulled it out. And since it is a deep blue district, it's almost guaranteed that he's going to Congress. So that's a great, great night in New York. The establishment, of course, is not happy about this. And I think the big thing about this, and this is what we've got to get on progressive candidates, people who have won actually in office, you guys need to use that endorsement power. You all got to stick together. Again, AOC's endorsement, excellent. Bernie's endorsement and Elizabeth Warren's a bit late, but good. Now, if they can do that for other races, especially in the early months, right, of these primaries, that I think makes the difference. And so, yes, endorsements do matter early on. And of course, that leads to coverage from mainstream, from media, because look, like it or not, media really, really does matter. All right. So that's it. Let's go to not so great news, right? So now Biden, of course, look, Biden's going to be the nominee. We already know that. Bernie Sanders dropped out, still on the ballot in New York. In fact, he got 20% of the vote in New York, right? Biden got 67%. Now, that's actually not bad for Bernie because, again, since he did already drop out, he's not even actively running a campaign, but getting 20% of the vote in New York, he easily cleared 15%, so he gets delegates, and that helps him as he can now have more leverage during the convention in order to change some of the rules, right? So there's that, right? There's that little bright spot, but now we get to some not quite as bright news, or potentially. Now, let's see. Kentucky, right? So now in Kentucky, there was a race, Amy McGrath versus Charles Booker. So now they were fighting to figure out who is going to take on Mitch McConnell. That's an incredibly difficult race. It's going to be a very uphill battle, but it looked like Charles Booker had a little bit better of a shot than Amy McGrath. So what happened? Well, it looks like right now, Amy McGrath is in the lead. Now, again, what's interesting about that is that the race hasn't been called, even though McGrath is ahead by about 7 points now. You have McGrath in the lead, 44% to 37% over Charles Booker. Now, look, this still has potential to turn out to be an upset victory by Charles Booker because there's a lot of ballots, especially absentee ballots, that haven't been counted yet. And Jefferson County. Now, Jefferson County is important because it has nearly 20% of the state's African-American population. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to be guaranteed to go to Charles Booker, of course, but if Booker's internal polling holds, then he's going to get Jefferson County by over 80%. Now, Jefferson County, of course, involves Louisville, right? And so that's a high population area. That's worth a lot of votes. And so if that internal polling holds and he takes Jefferson County by 80%, well, man, there's a chance that he could definitely pull off an upset over Amy McGrath and then go on to, compete against Mitch McConnell. I mean, look, Mitch McConnell's got a lot of advantages. It is Kentucky. He's got incumbency. He's got lots and lots of money. But the media attention on this race is also important. And there is a chance. And again, according to polling, Charles Booker, yes, still gets beaten by Mitch McConnell, but it's a lot closer than somebody like Amy McGrath. And so there's a possibility that Charles Booker, as small as it is, could get lucky and take down Mitch McConnell. Again, even if he doesn't, though, and he gets very, very close, well, that's also signals a sea change. That even people in Kentucky, progressives in Kentucky, can get close to taking down someone is as entrenched in the political system and the establishment as Mitch McConnell. So that's important, right? So otherwise, it's kind of an excellent night for progressives. Again, good night, Elliot Engel. You're out of here. He's going to be getting a lobbying job here pretty soon with Joe Crowley. That's my assumption. I don't know for sure. And then, I mean, look, who's going to be next, right? That's the question, because we're not done with primaries yet. Who's the next corporate Democrat that's going to be retired? Could it be Debbie Wasserman Schultz facing a primary challenge? Could it be Nancy Pelosi also facing a primary challenge from Shahid Buttar? Or what about Richard Neal? What about Frank Pallone? I mean, look, there's a lot of progressive challengers. By the way, Russ Cincinnati is taking on Frank Pallone. I've talked to him. You can check out that interview. He's an excellent progressive candidate. He could take out Frank Pallone, who's incredibly corrupt. You've got all of these corporate Democrats that take lots and lots of money from corporations and are against things like Medicare for All and the Green New Deal. And you've got a lot of these progressive candidates that are challenging them that need your help. So many great races, so many candidates. And look, if you look at the wins last night, those candidates, progressives, like, for example, Kara Eastman, they could be buoyed by these wins and get more national attention. and go on to lead their own historical upsets. And so there is time, by the way, for you to support those candidates. You can donate, you can phone bank, you can text bank, you help out any way you can by going to their websites, looking them up, and helping them. Because, look, even though Bernie Sanders didn't win the nomination, we've got a lot of progressive challengers that could potentially remake Congress and pave the way for the next generation's Bernie Sanders to win the presidency and finally enact progressive policy. And that is something worth working for. All right. Moving on here. President Donald Trump is looking for someone to blame after the disastrously disappointing Tulsa rally. And he's, of course, taking aim at some of his top staffers. According to reports, Trump was left visibly shaken after less than 6,200 people showed up to watch him speak at the 19,000-seat BOK Arena. That, of course, look, that was supposed to be his gigantic comeback rally. Like, hey, you know, the Trump train, we're back. You can't derail this train, this Death Star. Well, now you had a very sad, very low energy turnout that even Republicans, other Republicans, are mocking. So now that's it. Trump's campaign manager, Brad Parscale, had overhyped this rally by boasting of 1 million RSVPs. Of course, as we know, a lot of those turned out to be TikTok teens and K-pop stans who hilariously punked the campaign by reserving free tickets and just not going. I couldn't imagine the rage like that Donald Trump could have had once he figured that out. And he was told, hey, turns out you got punked by a bunch of teenagers. Oh, that'd be fantastic to have been a fly on the wall in that room. So now we go to the response to this, right? Not just a blind rage, but also like what he's going to do staff-wise about this, as Brad Parscale clearly had no idea what he was doing and absolutely messed up. So now, according to Gabriel Sherman, citing Republican sources, Brad, and this is what they're saying, quote, Brad really shit the bed Saturday night. You have to remember, execution is 95% of presidential politics. Well, you got another Republican source that spoke to another outlet saying about the rally, quote, it's politics 101. You underpromise and overdeliver. Parscale, of course, did not do that. And so, I mean, you had 6,200 people show up. It's sad. Baby. Sherman reported that the empty sections in the arena so enraged Trump that he had even threatened to not go on stage. Yeah. Imagine being one of those Trump people who actually decided to show up. You know, like, I mean, it's not hard to imagine. You think COVID is a hoax, climate change is a hoax, Donald Trump is the best thing since sliced bread, and that, you know, his bad polling is only because of fake news, right? And then you expect to be, you know, packed into this rally, and you're not going to wear a mask, of course, because you don't believe COVID is real. So you're going to breathe in that COVID air, standing shoulder to shoulder with your fellow MAGA hat wearers, right? And then you get there, and there's nobody there. Oops. And so not only that, but the guy that you're there to see, that you think is better than Jesus, or is like a modern day Jesus, is getting so mad that nobody is there that he's like, I'm not going to go out there. I'm not going to go out there. Hilarious, right? It's so good thinking about it. Yes, I am experiencing Schadenfreude. So, I mean, again, looks out at that crowd, and it must have destroyed his very fragile ego, because that's what he has. I mean, even if it does so for just a moment, where he has a moment of self-reflection and awareness, like, oh my God, it turns out people hate me. Bubble was shattered, man. The terrible, terrible truth revealed to him. And it was so, so good. So now the other issue here with Parscale, other than messing up the rally because he has no idea what he's doing, because he has no political experience. It doesn't mean that Brad Parscale is necessarily a dumb person. Oh, no, I actually think that he's got this on lock, right? Because he puts the priorities of him making money off Trump over Trump winning re-election. And so, look, that's devious / smart. You actually have to be a thinking person to do that, to screw over the person that normally screws over, to con the con, right? And that's what's going on, right? He's been making a killing off Trump. In fact, there's a conservative columnist writing in the Bulwark, and this is Jonathan Last, and he wrote this about Parscale. Quote, to understand what Parscale is doing, you have to flip the telescope around 180 degrees and realize that he didn't build a Death Star, which is, of course, ironic, because they would boast about the Trump Death Star. You realize Death Star is a tool of fascist oppression in Star Wars that destroys innocent planets, right? Or I should say planets with innocent people on it, right? I mean, do you have any self-awareness about what this is? And of course, that would make the progressives, Democrats, to be the rebel alliance, the good guys in this one. I swear they don't seem to get it. But okay. Nonetheless, Last writes, well, he didn't build it. He built the biggest Nigerian prince scam in the history of the world. But then adds, the target of his scam wasn't the rubes on the internet. No, Parscale built a scheme to take dead aim at the president of the United States and the guy in the big guy bit. That look you saw on Trump's face Saturday night, that wasn't sadness or defeat. And I think I have that image here. That wasn't sadness or defeat. It was a realization that he's been the mark all along. So now I get it. I think the framing of that is, well, none of this is Donald Trump's fault. It's all Brad Parscale's fault. Yes and no. Look, again, that framing absolves Trump of any of basically any responsibility. I think that's dumb because, like, no, Donald Trump definitely shares responsibility because he's supposed to be running this thing. But he's an idiot and he doesn't actually do anything. He doesn't actually like to work. And so, yeah, it's part of his fault for not managing, because he can't manage himself out of a paper bag. He's not management material. Remember, the Trump family, look, so I'm not going to say the Trump family, but the Trump name, right? Donald Trump is so stupid and he can't manage anything that people just pay him for the name. They don't pay him to build hotels. No, they just pay for the licensing name for the licensing fees for the name. And so that's how he makes his money. Just licensing his name. And so he doesn't build campaigns. He doesn't work. He doesn't really do anything. He doesn't manage. And so all of that is left to other people, which makes people like Parscale, who are like, money, 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 right? Well, why don't I just, go and make money off this guy? And it's so, so easy. In fact, Parscale, after working for Trump, has made millions of dollars, and he has also gotten a Ferrari, a Range Rover, $400,000 boat, $2 million condos, and a $2.4 million waterfront house in Fort Lauderdale. And before working for the Trump campaign, he went from an obscure web developer to driving Ferraris. And so, look, even if Parscale isn't running a scam, and his, I don't know, it's kind of weird even saying the word legitimate, right, for what he's doing. But, okay, even if it was just like, he didn't mean to, and he's just like, okay, I didn't set up a scam, but I just decided to take what money I could. Well, he took a lot of money. He milked the Trump campaign for millions of dollars. And now it could be that Trump's catching on, but we don't know. I mean, which brings me to Kushner, right? So now Kushner, after the Tulsa rally, takes over a little bit from Parscale. So now sources tell Vanity Fair that the president had reportedly grown increasingly frustrated at polls which recent weeks consistently showed him trailing Joe Biden by double digits. And that's under Parscale. So that's why he's upset about Parscale and put Kushner in there. But Kushner is already doing a billion things and none of them good, right? Like, for example, he's in charge of peace in the Middle East. How's that go? Not very well. He's fighting coronavirus. How's that going? Not very well. So he's basically been put in charge of everything and sucks at everything. So now that gets backed up, by the way, by John Bolton. Now, John Bolton recently said in an interview a day after the Trump rally that Kushner, aside from Trump, is actually one of the most powerful people in the White House. He's basically, when you think about it, he's the president. He's doing everything. Well, no wonder everything's falling apart. In fact, Bolton said it varied from time to time, but the sustained answer to that question is Jared Kushner. And of course, that's a response to asking who's in charge, who's really running things. So now, that said, Donald Trump will get annoyed at Kushner. In fact, he got annoyed at Kushner when it came to Parscale, when he found out how much they were actually paying Parscale, how much he was getting from the campaign. And Trump's like, wait, Kushner, Jared, did you allow this? Did you say that this was okay? He's going to get in trouble, but at the same time, Donald Trump's not going to fire his son-in-law, but he could fire Parscale. So now some of the possible replacements for Parscale floated have been Jason Miller and Corey Lewandowski. Now, Corey Lewandowski, of course, is considered, and not just him, but some of the other replacements to Parscale are basically, considered by Trump to be lightweights. So in the end, we're not sure exactly who's going to replace Parscale, even if Parscale gets fired. But look, a lot of these, and the reason that I cite Vanity Fair is because generally Gabriel Sherman, when he makes these predictions and then gets laughed at by the right wing, they usually turn out to be correct. And so Parscale, he says Parscale is on the way out because of Donald Trump's unhappiness with the polls and unhappiness with, of course, how much he's making off Trump and the conservative backlash as well against Parscale. And so we don't really know, but I think we can be reasonably sure that Parscale is likely either going to be fired or moved to an inconsequential part of the campaign because of all of these complete and utter fuck ups. So, all right. Moving on here. Actually, you know what? No, let's do the next story. Yeah. No, it's all good. Then we'll take a break.
COVID-19, COVID. I say, what's the 19? COVID-19. Some people can't explain what the 19. Give me the COVID-19. I said, that's an odd name.
That was our very stable genius, apparently not knowing something that has been explained multiple times by experts. What is the 19 in COVID-19? So that would happen, of course, during Trump's latest rally in Phoenix on Tuesday. He then, of course, in that same diatribe, had called coronavirus a term that was so racist that even Kellyanne Conway had to call it out as racist. So, and by the way, whenever he used a racist term for coronavirus, that was, intended, of course, to go after Chinese Americans, Asian Americans, and has led to a lot of violence and intimidation against those groups. Well, there's so much cheering. Everybody was like, oh my God, yes, call it that terrible term. Yeah. Wow. So now, anyway, he doesn't know what the 19 stands for, right? In COVID, some people can't explain it. Really? What people can't explain it? Other than, of course, yourself. I mean, you could ask the people on your coronavirus task force. They would know. Except that you don't meet with them anymore. And you don't talk to them. You don't meet with them. And even when you do, you don't really care what they say because you decided that you're done with coronavirus because you think it's a hoax in order to hurt your reelection. But for those who are curious, right, about what the 19 and COVID-19 is, let me explain. So now COVID-19 is the disease caused by what is called the novel coronavirus, right? And it gets its name from coronavirus disease 2019. The 19 denotes the year that the coronavirus was identified. So that's it. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. What's not to understand about the 19 and coronavirus and COVID-19, right? Very, very basic. That said, it's Donald Trump. Are we really going to expect him to know basic things and basic facts? Trump, see what's interesting about Trump is not only is he just deeply stupid, but he's also like proud of being stupid. And so that was on display because not only did he, talk about, oh, I don't know what the 19 means. I could come up with names and let me spout some racist stuff. But also notice how he didn't wear a mask. This is in Arizona where you had a gigantic spike in coronavirus cases, so much so that the hospital beds are basically overflowing, right? There's not enough beds for the incoming patients that need them. But he decides, no, we're going to have a rally with thousands of people. We're not going to do social distancing, and I'm not even going to wear a mask. Not only that, but apparently this was a violation of the rules of course, Phoenix. In fact, starting this Saturday, and that was last Saturday, Phoenix residents must wear a mask anywhere indoors or outdoors where physical distancing cannot be maintained. There is a $250 fine for repeat noncompliance, according to the Arizona Republic. So that said, right, the mayor, this is Mayor Kate Gallego, who's a Democrat, looks at this rally and says, you know what? I'm just not going to enforce this. I'm not going to enforce this at the rally, right? I'm going to enforce it everywhere else. But go ahead, Trump people. Go ahead and gather. Go ahead and not do social distancing or wear your masks. And I'm not really going to enforce it. I'm not going to fine you for it, I guess. So, and I think that it's likely because there's really no point to doing it. Donald Trump, he wouldn't follow the rules anyway. You think he cares? No. And even if he is fined, you think he's going to pay the fine? No, the guy doesn't pay his bills. Look, he still owes money from his 2016 rallies. So he also owes money, by the way, for his parade in Washington, D.C. Yeah. So, no, he doesn't pay his bills. And so I'm pretty sure Mayor Gallego is like, it's not worth it. Like, what's the point? He's not going to do anything about it anyway. So, and it's because, of course, he doesn't care about anybody's health but his own. And he also thinks that people wearing masks only do so to spite him. And that's it. I mean, he also thinks that masks make you weak, which makes no sense. You know what makes you weak? Getting coronavirus. I mean, literally, physically makes you weak as you get these symptoms of coronavirus, sometimes very, very serious, which send you to the hospital and sometimes even have you end up on a ventilator. So that's weak, right? Getting coronavirus and dying from it, weak. You know, it's also weak not protecting others by doing something so simple to protect them from a virulent pandemic. That's also weak. But that part makes you weak, pathetic, and selfish. especially at a time, again, as I mentioned, where hospital beds in Arizona are full. They're at capacity because they've seen an enormous surge in cases. And now, of course, that Trump rally is probably going to add to that number. But again, these guys, they don't care. They don't care. It's not a question just of ignorance or willful ignorance on Trump's part, but I think of actual pure selfish malevolence. That's who the president is, man. Selfish and malevolent. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back and we're going to do Lawn Care Karen. That's a fantastic story. It's hilarious. And we'll do a student at a Trump rally that thinks Aunt Jemima lived the American dream. And of course, I'm going to break down how that's ridiculous. But stay right here, Round the Nation. We'll be right back.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Welcome back to the show. Round the Nation right here. TVT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so there's a super chat here from Adrian Benningfield. It says AOC because words and deeds, guardian of the people. I agree with all that. AOC is fantastic. And look, I know that some people are like, oh my gosh. But what about her saying Pelosi is Mama Bear? Look, I understand that she tried using her, some of her first term to kind of like be like, hey, look, I'm going to try to get along because we don't have a majority here in Congress. And so I got to work, and do what I can to promote progressive policy, but also try to work with people that I generally don't agree with and try to get along with them. I get that, right? And I understand that. But I think now is the time, since she won her reelection so handily, so that I think now is the time that she needs to challenge the Pelosi's of the world a little bit harder. Because again, I understand that criticism. I actually agree with some of that criticism that I think you need to be a little bit tougher. But there's also, of course, the reason that I pointed out where I don't think that, the reason that she wasn't as tough. But look, that said, I can't say that she wasn't tough either. I think it's sort of like a mixture, right? I mean, she started out by protesting in Pelosi's office, so I can't say that she's not tough. I like AOC, and I understand some of the criticism, but I also don't understand some of the criticism, and I think she's doing a good job, and I think that she's going to continue, and I hope she's even more aggressive now that she's got some allies coming. So anyway, that said, let's thank some patrons. Let's see, patreon.com/TWTNation. I'm going to thank Christopher Neal and Jake Z. Thank you. Again, that's one way you can help the show. Channel members Sven R. and Miranda Dewey. So those are channel members. You can join by hitting the join button below to become a channel member. All right. So let's try to get through this. Let's go to Lawn Care Karen.
Clean it up. Maybe nobody won't do it.
Dumping
Nobody
on
won't do
my
it.
property.
Oh, you mad now?
Yeah, I am mad.
You
I'm
mad
mad.
now?
And you know what?
Listen, clean your property
And
up.
next time
Maybe
I'll call
nobody
the
will.
cops. I will call the cops.
Nobody
you know what?
won't do
because
it.
this is dumping.
You're right.
You are illegally dumping on my property.
All right. So that was another video going viral of a woman threatening to call the cops on a black man. So now what was going on here? Apparently she alleges that he was dumping leaves on her property. This guy, of course, is works for a lawn care company. And so, or I'm sorry, he's cleaning the streets. And so I don't quite get it, right? I don't quite get how he was dumping. Like normally that would involve like dumping trash or, you know, I guess street debris. But in this case, I didn't really see it a whole lot. And so it seems like a waste of time. It just seems like getting mad for almost no reason. Again, because he's basically doing his job. And so now, apparently, that's enough for her to have a meltdown. And you can see it. Go and watch the whole video. Again, I just showed you a snippet of it, but it really was just a meltdown. So now I'm going to go to another video here where this man's going to explain that, hey, no, I wasn't dumping, and here's why.
Call the company. Don't talk to me. Listen, I did not blow nothing off this property. I just blew the street off. That's all I did.
You
I'm not the
blew it
maintenance.
onto the street.
No, look.
No, you did.
Look at this. How did I blow anything off the street and I'm doing pound scrawl? Think about it. I don't do maintenance. I do pound scrawl. Look.
Who was blowing leaves?
This is what I'm telling you. If I blew the leaves off the
Please turn your
property,
camera off.
if I blew the leaves off the property, you feel me? This property will be clean. This property is nothing clean. All I did was blew the edge. You feel me? Onto over there.
Yes, this is my property.
She tripping.
This is my
Call
property.
the company. Don't talk to me.
That's my property. Okay, but did you notice her property is full of trees? I mean, if she's mad about leaves, I mean, wait till she finds out about what happens in fall. Because, you know, you're going to get leaves everywhere. It doesn't make any sense to me. I can understand if he was actually dumping, like, you know, but again, it didn't seem like she was doing that or that he was doing that. And so I love how his response was, well, okay, look, if you got a problem with me, what I'm doing, just call the company then. Call the company. Don't talk to me. Don't yell at me. All right. Well, I bet she did call the company. I bet she did ask to speak with the manager to try to get this guy fired. And that's probably after she had threatened, obviously after she had threatened to call the police on him, which I would rather her call the company than call the police. Look, let me just say, cell phones are probably the best thing that have ever been invented. At least when it comes to racial justice. Why? Because now we see what black people deal with all the time. And I know she says in the video, well, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're black. I would still be very, very angry. But would you have called the cops? Would you have literally threatened to call the cops? I don't necessarily buy it. Maybe I'm biased because I've seen how this ends all the time, but I don't know. I mean, it's not like, and here's the thing, it's not like people are more racist than they were before. No, it's now they're just getting caught on camera. And I say it again because it is racist to call the cops on a black man for something that is not a crime. I know she said, oh, it's illegal dumping. Yeah, okay. Even if it is illegal, which I guess it could be, it would be a misdemeanor at most. It'd be like a ticketable offense. Like, oh, that's a $50 fine. But watching how police deal with black people in America, even something that is small as a traffic stop or a simple lawn violation, right? Which would this could be, right? Could still end up with somebody getting wrongfully arrested or even killed. And that's the problem, right? That's the thing. That's why you shouldn't call the cops on black people unless there is a real crime here. And that's the problem. No repercussions for her, but potential danger for him. But that, of course, is changing because now there are repercussions for her. There are repercussions for people that are caught on tape doing these things, because then, of course, we've seen some people lose their jobs. Some people get called out, of course, and that's what this is. I mean, he even said in the video, part of the video that I didn't show, hey, you're going viral. You're going viral. So just calm down. All right. You're going viral. And that's not going to be good. In fact, here's the thing, right? Well, I've got one more video for you. And I think you're going to love this because it is my favorite part. Take a look.
Look, you turning red, baby. Look at you. You turning like an apple right now. Let it go. Frozen. Let it go, baby. Elsa, let it go.
Let it go. Just let it go. Hey, you know what? A lot more Karens would not be in a lot of videos if they would just learn to let it go. Yeah. All right. Anyway, moving on here. We got one more story for you guys today. And it's more Trump insanity.
Aunt Jemima was canceled. And if you didn't know, Nancy Green, the original first Aunt Jemima, she was a picture of the American dream. She was a freed slave who went on to be the face of the pancake syrup that we love and have in our pantries today.
So that was a young woman at a Trump Phoenix rally who is lamenting about the change in Aunt Jemima pancakes and syrup by putting out, of course, false information. So now the woman's name is, and you're going to be shocked, Reagan Escude, or Escude. I'm not sure how to say her name, but her first name, of course, Reagan. You know, Ronald Reagan, and she happens to be a conservative and one of the members of Turning Point USA. So now she is very, very upset that Quaker Oats changed the name of this pancake mix and syrup mix, and so. This is more outrage from the right wing, right? Look, a lot of people were rightly pointing out that, hey, man, look, that's kind of a racist mascot that you got there. Maybe you should probably change that at some point, just rebrand. And so the company said, because we have right now an issue with Black Lives Matter protests and racial representation around this country, and we're having a serious discussion about, taking down Confederate monuments and basically trying to reduce the ways in this country is systemically racist, right? So now pancake syrup, not necessarily racist, but when you have someone that is a caricature and a character that comes from a minstrel show, then yeah, that is, I mean, that's obviously something that probably should change with the times, right? So now, again, very, very upset though, Ms. Reagan is, because, I mean, how dare you? How dare you remove Aunt Jemima? And she's going to use this saying, this basically meme, and I've seen this around Facebook, right? That you're erasing black voices like Nancy Green, right? How dare you? How dare you erase these people? The first African American millionaire. Well, you're going to be shocked to find out that the history that she's peddling is incorrect. And actually, Nancy Green suffered not only as a slave, but also after her emancipation, where she still suffered systemic racism. So now Snopes recently put out an article, and this is based on a book called The Mammy, A Century of Race, Gender, and Southern Memory, written by author Kimberly Wallace Sanders. So now in it, the author writes this: at one point, the most reliable means of consolidating the country involved inducing a kind of national amnesia about the history of slavery. And this is, of course, after Reconstruction, or during Reconstruction. Aunt Jemima was created to celebrate the state-of-the-art technology through a pancake mix. She did not celebrate the promise of post-emancipation progress for African Americans. Aunt Jemima's freedom was negated or revoked in this role because of the character's persona as a plantation slave, not a free black woman employed as a domestic. An African American woman pretending to be a slave was pivotal to the trademark's commercial achievement in 1893. So basically, hearkening back to the time where you had these African American women that are not free, that are slaves, that are mammies. And of course, the mammy is the caricature of an older, sometimes sassy black woman that, is enslaved to the family and takes care of all the domestic duties, including raising white children and putting those white children basically ahead of, if she has her own children, ahead of her own family, and puts the well-being of the slave owner and the family over her own well-being. So there's that. So now the success, she continues, revolved around the fantasy of returning a black woman to a sanitized version of slavery. So one that, of course, doesn't involve the actual horrific reality of what slavery actually was, which was, again, filled with beatings, whippings, lynchings, rape, abuse, and the fact that you do not believe that these people are actual human beings and not treating them as if they're human beings, as if they're subhuman or just property. And that's the reality of slavery. And so this character was created to kind of whitewash that, right? And say, oh, no, happy slave. Aunt Jemima, very happy, very well treated. And look at how everyone appreciates the pancakes that she makes. No, it's horrifying. And so, yeah, it needed to go. So now the Aunt Jemima character not only did that, but involved a regression of race relations, and her character helped usher in a prominent resurgence of the happy slave mythology in the antebellum South. So that's the character, right? So now Reagan mentions Nancy Green and how she benefited from this by becoming America's first black millionaire. Well, the truth about that is that she was not a millionaire. In fact, according to historians, she wasn't even able to live off the earnings that she made from her portrayal as Aunt Jemima, and continued to work as a housekeeper until a few years before her death in 1923. So they stole her wages. Again, this rebranding was a popular thing. That's how the Aunt Jemima brand literally took off. And yet, she was not compensated fairly for her betrayal, for her portrayal. And it was a betrayal, right? Because she wasn't compensated for the work that she had done. Now, the Aunt Jemima character itself, by the way, was inspired by a minstrel show. Now, you guys know what that is, right? It's a minstrel show is basically where white people will go in blackface and do outrageous impressions of African Americans, right? So now this particular minstrel show involved men, again, dressed in blackface, performing a song entitled Old Aunt Jemima. So everything that you're hearing about, Aunt Jemima from conservatives about how, oh no, this is a great thing. How dare you impugn the memory of Nancy Green by taking, and basically taking her image off the box and replacing it with something else. How dare you do that, right? That's a bad thing. I can't believe that you're erasing her history. When in reality, nobody really knows the history, at least on the conservative side, because they're not talking about what actually happened, the reality of not only slavery, but also with, the memories of slavery and the institutional, racism and portrayals of African Americans, even during a time when there was supposedly free. And again, you have different forms of slavery, including, different forms of institutional racism, like wage theft, which clearly happened to to Nancy Green and her family. And so they made every single way to try to disenfranchise her and to try to take what she rightfully earned through her portrayal. And again, nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. So what you're hearing from conservatives is basically concern trolling. That's what that is. There's a clear political angle to this. And what it is, of course, the conservative war against so-called cancel culture. Now, why are conservatives going to war against cancel culture? Because they're often the ones being canceled because of horribly racist opinions, misogynistic opinions, and other things that are related. And so, yeah, they are getting canceled for that, and they don't like it. And so they come up with ridiculous memes, and they lie about the history because a lot of people, they can get away with it because a lot of people don't know. And this is just another example of that. So Reagan, now that you know the history, can you really be sad about the removal of Aunt Jemima? Again, it's the same stuff. It's the same, syrup. It's the same pancake mix. It's just going to be a different, less racist and offensive name. And if that triggers you, well, then I guess you could just go get a different brand. All right. One more here, super chat. Ashley, Dave Chappelle sent a message that not all but some bitter ladies should listen to Shut Up and Go Home. There you go. All right. That's all I got for you guys today, by the way. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel for more videos, notifications on when new videos drops. And of course, live streams, upcoming live streams, which happen, of course, at 3 p.m. Eastern every day. So Monday through Friday. All right, guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. We'll see you guys later.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Mike Pence.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.